Hello, welcome back. Mike from Canavan Wealth. It is Tuesday, May 9th. Time for Mike Reads the Journal, my favorite time of the week. Markets are down a little bit today, but shockingly flat again, up technically a tenth since we last talked 5 days ago. It was a nutty week. So we went through kind of the mini banking crisis 2.0 last week with First Republic going down, and then all the problems with short selling PacWest and Western Alliance, but those seem to have recovered. And then we go through this kind of quick recovery and then kind of bounce along the top here. Most of the clickbait articles kind of are in consensus that we're in a trading envelope, meaning we don't really expect the S&P 500 to trade above about 4150 or below about 4000 anytime soon. And I kind of agree with them. I think we're going to bounce along here for a while until we see actual moderating action by the Fed in terms of not raising interest rates, and then we need to see good economic numbers from that. So probably nothing's going to be happening in the markets for a little while. All right, not a surprise here. More problems with commercial real estate. Not really problems. I would not call this a doomsday article by any stretch of the imagination, but this is specifically about apartment buildings, which we have not talked before. Mostly before we talking about warehouses and office buildings, but this is kind of large apartment complexes. They make up these collateralized loan obligations. These are securities that get sold. Very similar to collateralized mortgage obligations on homes that were much of the problem in the 2008 global financial crisis. So really just talking through here about the effect that interest rates has had on apartment buildings and some similarities between 2008 and kind of today. Back in 2021, we sold a ton of them when interest rates were cheap. Obviously not very popular right now with interest rates where they are relative to kind of recent history. So no big shocker here, to be perfectly honest, kind of snoozy news compared to everything else going on. Let's talk about politics, right? No better way to drive away potential clients or possibly alienate clients than talk about politics. But I think it's important that people be well informed on them and hopefully get a view that is not politically charged. So we are right in the middle, I believe, at this exact moment. They are talking about debt ceiling with Biden. So the Republicans, typically of the House, they have control of the House, which is required to pass a debt ceiling raise. And they want to get concessions out of the Democrats in order to raise the debt ceiling, specifically around federal spending cuts. And the Democrats are saying that raising the debt ceiling should not have any strings attached to it. To be perfectly honest, in my opinion, they are both right. So what do I mean by that? We must raise the debt ceiling, right? We cannot call into question the credibility of U.S. debt. That is very important, not only to our own finances, but to global finances, right? It's super important. We cannot do that. And yet, it does not shock me that the Republicans are using what leverage they have right now in order to try and get something that they want out of the White House. And I think specifically that what they're asking for is not something that at least Biden specifically is necessarily against, which we haven't heard a whole lot of rhetoric out of the Democrats in recent history around spending cuts in the federal deficit, but we have recently out of Biden. So they're not even asking for something that is that outrageous. So I hate to see them push these spending cut talks right up to the deadline, which seems to be kind of early June, late May. I suspect this is going to go right to the deadline. They're going to make this very political, trying to maneuver each other into a position where the American public thinks they're to blame. My guess is that if this does not happen, the blame will fall on the Republicans, which means I think they probably will get whatever they can and then cave. But I don't expect this to go to. I don't think we're at a political point now where we would drive this that hard. McCarthy, he's a center line Republican. Biden's a center line Democrat, in my opinion. I think they'll eventually raise it. don't think any of them are crazy enough to call into the question the credibility of U.S. debt. So um, we'll talk. I did a video on the debt, which I think is excellent. I will put that link if you kind of want to understand where I come from when I talk about federal debt. So, all right, the next politically charged topic is immigration. So Title 42, which is kind of was being used around COVID to limit immigration specific asylum seekers based on the public health concern of COVID. That expires this Thursday, the 11th. It's going to be, everyone has known that this is going to be a problem when this expires in terms of the number of people at the southern border. So again, like the last one, I did a video on immigration where I kind of educated myself because I didn't really know what was going on at the southern border. That I will put a link to that in the description. The southern border is undoubtedly a problem. I don't care what political party you are or what your thought is on immigrants, but the southern border is undeniably a problem. Is it a disaster crisis? Humanitarian, absolutely. In terms of percentage of population change and whatnot, I think you'd be surprised by the numbers. And I don't want this to become a discussion about whether we do or do not want immigrants, but this is going to be a big issue. Specifically coming up, Biden has deployed the National Guard to help deal with it, and then he has kind of implemented some new rules, which are, to put it politely, not popular, right? Despite the fact that these probably lean a little more conservative, a little more Republican, these rules that he's putting into place to kind of replace Title 42, the Republicans are never going to give him an inch, no matter what. Conservatives are not going to be happy with a Democrat's immigration policies, despite the fact that they may lean more towards their way. So they're never going to be happy with them. And the Democrats, understandably, are not happy with these rules because of how restrictive they are. They're saying that these are largely just a replacement of Title 42 in another way. There's more to them. I am not going to go into it because I do not understand this well enough to really speak intelligently. But what I wanted to address here is very similar to my talk when we were talking about French pensions, which is when someone makes a decision in power, like Emmanuel Macron in France, or the president here in the U.S., that is not popular with anyone, it leaves very few reasons for why they're going to do it, right? It could be for their own personal gain. I highly doubt Joe Biden is making immigration policy so that he personally can benefit from it, which leaves really the only reason is he thinks it's the best thing to do, despite the fact that it's not popular, right? He's never going to be popular with the Republicans, no matter what he does. And he's alienating his own voting base with these rules. So why would he do it if there's any other reason than he thinks it's the best thing for the situation based on what his advisors are telling him or, his worldview concerning this? And to be perfectly honest, that is the only thing I ask out of politicians, is that they do what in their mind is the best thing for the country. I don't expect what they do to be what I think is the best thing for the country, right? It is unreasonable for me to judge whether I think a politician is doing a good job based on what I think should be done, right? Because all I want them to do is what they think is best for the country. They were voted in by their voter base for a reason. And as long as they are doing their best job, that's all I really ask of them. So, am I a huge fan of Joe Biden? I think he's a fine president. I mean, I don't think he's one of our greater, better presidents, but I think he's doing fine. And the fact that he's doing something that's unpopular with his own party and obviously unpopular with the other party, I think is a good sign that he's doing what he thinks is right. So, my heart still bleeds for the humanitarian crisis that is going on at the southern border, uh, and all of the people that are affected by that. But that's an entirely other conversation. All right, that is it for Mike Reads the Journal today. next week's Social Security seminar on May 19th at 10. You can register for that on canavanwealth.com. If you like the video, please like it and consider subscribing if you want to see similar content. Thank you. I'll see you soon.